just thumbs up if you can, so I make sure that I'm not talking to ghosts. Okay, that's good. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope your weekend is off to a good start, even though it's about to finish. But yeah, I hope we're all good. Welcome to today's edition of the EnerGii Tribe discussion. So I'll just quickly give a rundown of what the EnerGii Tribe is about, and then introduce the two amazing people who are going to be sharing their thoughts today. And then from there, would kick off the session. And please feel free to drop in the chat box anything that you want to say, your comments, suggestions, everything. You can also use the raise hand button, and then you'll be called upon to speak at any time. So please, feel free. So basically, the EnerGii Tribe is a community of people very interested in the energy space, very interested in building, definitely within the energy space. And so what that building would look like would definitely be different for different people. And so what we do is essentially support people to grow, essentially support people with knowledge, with resources, and also with, practical examples on how to essentially build deeply within this space here. And so, it's a very fun, lively community as well. So please feel free to, share ideas you may have at any point in time. You can send a message to me or anybody within the admin team, and then we'll be happy to, talk with you. We'll be happy to, incorporate some of these ideas you may even have. And we'll also be happy to, give the floor to you as we have given to two of our community members today. And so we are going to be having a very interactive session with two of our community members today, and that's Caleb and Gabriel. So Gabriel wrote this very interesting article. I don't know if you guys have read it. I think you should, because I have. And he talked about the Africa's just energy transition, why natural gas is not the enemy. And so after reading that very interesting and thoughtful article, I said that, why don't we just, convert this into a discussion within the community, see what people really think about the natural gas transition within Africa, and just get people's idea on what that looks like within the different spaces at which you guys work. Even as a student, what do you think about the natural gas transition? How do you think it's going to look like? What's like the potential of that? How do you think it's going to look like in the coming years? Also, bringing a little bit of debate into it as to, is this really what Africa needs? Is this something that we should be looking at? Should we, focus solely on, renewables or, the oil and gas? Or is this a pathway to the 2030 sustainable energy development goals for, the world and all of that? And so it was a very interesting article, and it is a very interesting article because it's still up there. And so this discussion is basically just to drill deeper into what the scenarios that the article projects, and also look into the bigger picture of it and see how then we as young professionals, as students, or as just energy enthusiasts are able to really solidly build the foundation within these discussions and all of that. And so let me not take all the shine. I think at this point I would call on, we have our two amazing people. So I'll call on Gabriel, if you're here, and Caleb, and if you guys are both here, please, introduce yourselves. I think we'll start with Gabriel. Please introduce yourself, tell us everything you need to know, and also your thoughts around writing this article and why you think it's important for us to look into. Yeah, over to you.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi, good
Please
evening.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but we can't see you yet. In case.
Okay. Can you see me now?
Not yet.
Can you see me?
Not yet. Okay, well,
I'm trying to.
no problem. While you're setting that up,
I've turned on.
No problem. While you're setting that up, we can have Caleb like introduce himself and all. So Caleb, if you're here, please. Okay, yes, we can see you now.
Yeah. Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Gabriel, and I sincerely appreciate this opportunity to discuss my article with the EnerGii Tribe and every other young future energy engineers and enthusiasts out there. What drove my interest in this article is, I'll call it a rush. For example, now I've been hearing and we've been seeing that the whole world, particularly the global north, is trying to dictate Africa's energy future. And it is happening in such a way that they called it, that was why I themed it, just transition. Africa just transition. And they forget to note that this is meant to be a process and not just a quantum jump or a quantum leap. So that is actually what made me address this situation, Africa's just transition. So we need to know, and for example now, we know the role of natural gas. We've seen it in diverse ways, how it has really elevated energy poverty to an extent, and because it has potentials. And number two, because of its vast amounts beneath the Earth's surface. We all know it's a popular notation that we have over 600 trillion cubic feet of gas beneath the Earth's surface. And we've seen its roles in domestic purposes and by extension, agricultural sector in the production of fertilizers. We can see that in what Dangote refinery has done, because it's helping agriculture, the agricultural sector and farmers. And again, in domestic uses, for example, you know the different fractions we have in gas, your butane, and all. You have your cooking gas. So for domestic uses, we've seen the role of natural gas, and particularly what interests me more is the electrification of Africa. 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, we talked about electrification, if I get that right. And then I watched the article. No, sorry, I watched the video on YouTube. I listened to that TEDx talk. It was really insightful, and I got to learn a lot. And for our own dear country, Nigeria, we've seen the roles of natural gas in electricity. For example, our main national grid, the Gabriel power plant, is actually what is powering the grid. It is natural gas. It is definitely natural gas. We've seen different Oben power plants. We've seen, for example, Lagos Water Corporation. It's being powered by gas. So we can see the roles of natural gas in this. So that is what I'm saying. I'm actually addressing the just transition. Why do we call it just transition? Or why do they call it just transition? It is phasing out gas. They said they want to phase out gas and other fossils. One of the rules, or let me say now, one of the problems they've been inciting or they've been telling us about is emissions. Now let me rephrase that. Now they've been saying the use of natural gas, or let me call it now the parent name, fossils, have been contributing to global emissions. And remember that Africa is the second largest continent in the world. And according to the International Energy Agency in 2023, it stated that Africa is responsible for just 4% of global historical emissions. Now look at this. It means that Africa, the second largest continent, is responsible for just 4%. Now ask yourself, who is responsible for the remaining 96%? We have 6 other continents left in the world, right? So now share this 96% among these 6 other continents. It's like they are taking 16% each. So now it means that if Africa doubles now 4 plus 4, 8%, if Africa doubles its emission, it will not still be equal to what one of these continents is producing. This fact alone makes this argument baseless. Because if you are telling us to end natural gas, the use of natural gas, because we've seen its usefulness in electrification, which is our main problem. So it's like you are telling us to go blackout. You are not solving an issue. And number two now, phasing out of natural gas into renewable energies. Like for example, now let's talk about solar now. There is one thing that we should always put in place, because we are talking about energy poverty. Another thing we should also note is that before you can be able to invest in something, you must have the financial capabilities. Now, if you don't have the financial capabilities to buy in, or let's say face in renewable energies, you are definitely going to hit your head on the rock. This is what I mean. Now, we have to choose a form of energy. This was set in the EnerGii Tribe, that for any energy that has to be brought out, it has to pass through the 3 stages, which is accessibility, affordability, and sustainability. So now, if we are choosing a particular energy or a particular form of energy, we have to look out for our capital investment. So we have to invest in a kind of energy that will give us quick revenues. You don't have to invest in a form of energy that will take you into diminishing returns. Now, this is what I mean. You taking African funds and putting it directly, because the global north asks us to phase out gas and go directly into renewable energies. Taking African funds and getting these renewable energies, which will bring our revenue in a very, very long run, not immediately. Definitely, you are going to lose funds and you are going to go broke. Africa is going to go broke. So these are the things that really made me drive me in writing out this article. I've talked for a long time, and please, I'll drop it here before we continue.
Yeah, I think it's already getting very interesting, and so I would want to hand the floor to you and Caleb. Caleb, if you're here, please feel free to unmute and introduce yourself. And so Gabriel and Caleb would be spearheading this conversation, and so I want us to engage as much as possible, put on the chat box what you think. Even if you want to interrupt them, please feel free to also interrupt them, because this is essentially going to be a conversation and a discussion, and it's okay if you don't have aligning views. It's very, very okay. The whole point is not essentially to agree with what Caleb and Gabriel would be saying. So make sure that you butt in at any point in time and share your opinion. So yeah, over to you, Caleb. And yeah. Hi, Caleb. Can you hear us? Okay. You're muted.
Wow. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Kaito. Thank you, Gabriel. I'm glad to be on the call. And yes, I was listening to you speaking so passionately already, as touching the need for Africa to maximize our natural gas resources. And one thing why I totally agree with that, I totally do, because we already are blessed with a lot when it comes to natural gas. I heard you give the exact value area. And there's a need for us to leverage and maximize on this which we have to bring about better power generation. As it's now, there's still a lot of Nigerians, a lot of Africans who are yet to have access to basic power. So we cannot just begin to emphasize the need for renewable energy, as important as that is, without having the utilization of the basic resources that we have to meet our needs. And historically, when it comes to industrialization, when it comes to the consumption of many of those resources and the resultant emissions from them, right? Especially towards the push for decarbonization, the push for less global warming, it's definitely something it's definitely something that we as a country and as a continent, right, we have not been major what's the word now major contributors to those emissions. As much as, yes, we still have a lot of our natural gas resources that is not yet being fully maximized, right? Some of it is still being flared, some of it is still not achieving its ultimate purpose. But the growth that we seek as a country, the growth that we seek as a continent, right, that would require us to also maximize even the wells that we have, right, would definitely. Can you hear me? It's showing me that my network is interfering. I don't know if that is.
Yes, we can.
I can hear you very well.
Okay, I guess while he's coming up, yeah, Gabriel, you can continue. Then whenever he gets that settled, you can always like join him.
Okay. Yes, just like as I was saying, one other thing I actually wanted to add that came up today while I was meditating on this is gas infrastructure is not enough. Because now, for example, now we talk about gas infrastructure. We have a gas infrastructure. If we don't have the policies in place, they are going nowhere. Because, for example, now in Nigeria, the whole thing about this industry, or let me say the gas industry, now for operators to come into the country to work, they have to get their permits and some other necessary thing. So what really drives this is when they talk about, like, let me say the opposition party talk about flaring and all, then I'm going to tell them that we've actually discussed the aspect of the baseless argument of carbon emission from Africa. So now the aspect of gas infrastructure, something happened in Egypt. Egypt have been able to curb their flaring by 26% because of policies. Now, in Nigeria, for example, now, in which before you mine, those that are into mining, before you do mining, before you get these extractions out, you have to go to the government and make sure you have the necessary permits, the necessary things. So what happened in Egypt? To curb this flaring, Egypt did something. They gave their operators a free license, and this gave them market liberalization and access to the grid. They gave their operators access to the grid in such a way that when they have excess gas, now we know that definitely you cannot shut in the well because we don't have the infrastructures to capture excess gas. Now, this is what Egypt did that curbed that flaring. Because if everybody wants to talk about we are flaring and we are contributing to carbonic emission, Egypt gave access, the free access to their operators to the grid. They gave them the free access to the grid in such a way that by the time they get out their gas from the subsurface, the wasted gas, the supposed wasted gas, will be channeled directly to the grid. So another thing I'm talking about is policy structures. They have to rephrase the structures, the policies to every operators, because if you continue finding operators for putting prices on every carbon that is being emitted, it will not reduce this flaring. This is where policy structure, and I actually don't want to digress so that I don't talk too much and too deep about it. So, but policy structures is another thing, because without policy structures, even if we have our gas infrastructures in place, of which we don't have, and which is the primary problem, because if you don't have gas infrastructures, you can't talk about gas commercialization. You can't talk about marketing these gases, because commercialization has to do with distribution. Now, if there is no connectivity between your gas field and the market, definitely it will still affect the distribution and the commercialization of the gas we are talking. So I don't know, Caleb, if you can continue.
I think I would want to build on something you said, right? Now, one of the primary things that would need to get right, to ensure the maximization of our natural gas resources will be the putting of infrastructure in place, right? We're talking about pipelines, we're talking about distribution channels, right? We're talking about storage facilities and all of that, right? Now, the interesting thing is that as much as that would, require a lot of financial outlay and also the technological know-how that will be needed for that, we have that in place, right? And it is relatively cheaper, relatively more feasible, right, as compared to renewables now. Why? Because battery technology, it's still being developed, right? Because just check it out, the relative cost of having solar panels, let me just use solar energy now, at individual levels, at domestic levels, then multiply that by a factor to be able to use that at the industrial levels. So the use of our natural gas still remains what is much more feasible. And we've also said, oh yes, gas flaring is an issue. However, gas is cleaner than coal. Gas is cleaner than diesel. Gas is cleaner than, some of the other options. So it just boils down to proper policy. It boils down to ensuring that the times when we have extra gas, right? You spoke of excess gas coming from wells. There is what is called the re-injection of this gas into wells to increase the pressure and allow for better flow. Okay, and yes, Kaito, I just saw your message where you spoke about the offsetting Nigeria carbon offsetting market activation. Yes, the interesting thing, right, is that overall, what I'm really emphasizing, right, is that I expect that as we see more intentionality, this is called the decade of gas. So between now and 2030, I'm expecting that focus and that focus on the use of our natural gas resources will bring about how do I describe it now? We bring about more growth, more progress, more development, more investments in this field, and it will definitely bring about the how do I put it? The preparation of Africa as a continent for sustainable energy. What I mean by that is, I'm considering natural gas not to be the destination, but to be a key contributor to our transition, a key contributor to us having the financial wherewithal. Because as we use this natural gas for exports, for power generation, for our fertilizers and industries, we're talking of CNG cars, right? And all of the other use cases, all of the other importance of this, it will allow our continent to also build the capital base, to also build, so that we do not come into the green energy and the renewable energy space and still be playing as people in need of help. Rather, by virtue of the things we have built, because think of this, once we fix power, right, maximizing our gas resources, definitely businesses will do better, right? And definitely there will be a growth in per capita GDP and all of the other things, which will allow us to play at par with Europe, with US, and all of the other countries that now, that seems to be their focus. That seems to be their major push for green energy and all of that. So I definitely believe that once we get those challenges right, between now 2030, 2040, because I'm not just saying this for the next 5 years. It's something that we'll be looking at the next 25 to 30 years, right? We will definitely have we'll be in a better position to ensure that there is that transition to renewable energy. Meanwhile, there would be a gradual integration of all of these other sources into the energy mix. So I would love to also hear your thoughts on that, especially as touching, bringing about that integration of other energy means, energy sources into the mix, so that we are not overly dependent on gas, just as for several decades now, Nigeria has been overly dependent on crude oil. But that's another conversation. But I'd love to see how we can, your thoughts and your contributions on how we can have more integration. Thank you, sir.
I think before Gabriel answers, we have 2 hands up. So if you allow them to speak, and then we can.
Yeah, I actually wanted to say so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I speak? Can I go first?
Yes, please.
All right, my name is Ndukwe Madwekwe. I represent Nephew Energy. Kudos, thumbs up to the organizers of this particular discussion. It's very timely. I subscribe absolutely to it. Right, so Nigeria Energy Mix. Just a brief background. Nigerian mini grid, Nigerian central system has been installed since 1960, 65, 67. And it's not sustainable. It's not even transitioning to the next phase of energy. That aside, as of this January, the grid collapsed twice, and it has collapsed even more than twice till date. And then the gap of those who are receiving energy in Nigeria and then those who are not receiving energy is those who are not receiving is between 80 million to 90 million. So you can imagine if you minus, we're about 241 million or 243 million, assuming, right? And then you have 80 to 90 million people not even served with energy. The gap is crazy. Now, if you talk about gas, yeah, gas sounds nice, it's renewable, right? But then to make up for these excesses of those who are underserved or even unserved for this energy mix, we must explore all options that are available to us. Go to the north, the sun is blazing there. Go to the east, there's enough gas there. Come to the west, you have the ocean there. The mix must be diversified across all stratas where we have these things easily accessible to the common man. Even if you come to the west here in Lagos, you have a lot of waste. Why are we not talking about waste to energy? Or why are we not seeing those plans there? And like I listened to the fact that Gabriel and Caleb mentioned almost the same thing, that yes, there are various players, policy-wise, industry-wise. It is time for each and every one of us on this call now to take this thing hook, line, and sinker. We shouldn't leave it for the government. Because now, yes, there's a field the government can play, or a space the government can play. There's a space, a gap you can fill in individually. And there's nothing stopping us from initiating policy that will influence the National Assembly, the Senate as well. There's nothing stopping us as individuals. Now, having said that, take a classical example. There was nothing like fintech policy, but with the rise of, you have the pay stack, you have the, what's this called now? There are a lot of them. They started rewriting, typically speaking, rewriting these policies because of why the industry, the ecosystem necessitated it. So what am I trying to say in essence? Wherever you are as an individual or a Nigerian within a community, you can influence an ecosystem. And I'm glad to tell you, sincerely speaking, at Nephew Energy, which is the company I represent, as a matter of fact, I co-founded it, right? We have integrated carbon register. Just funny enough, late last year, and as I speak to you now, the Nigerian government have signed 2 policies that are driving carbon credit or renewable energy en masse. Now, what am I trying to say in essence? The more you're thinking about these things, someone else is working on it. The day you start to work on it, it is the right time. It is the best time. So the more you're thinking about these things, please start putting plans in order. Start networking with people. Start relating with like minds so that you are engineering things that would shape the future of Africa. And by the way, just to round up, the world as a whole has 68 natural resources in total. Nigeria alone, please verify this. Nigeria alone has 58 natural resources. That's literally speaking, every state has a natural resource. So you in a state, you from a state, what are you doing about it? Your input, your action, your network has a role to play. The moment you start realizing it, the moment you start working on it, then you have started activating what is necessary. Congratulations to all of us that are on this call. Let's keep the conversation going. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ndukwe. And it's also been insightful what you do at Nephew Energy. It was a pleasure connecting with you on WhatsApp, and good to see you on the call. Thank you. So let's have Ikechukwu. Your hands are up. Would love to hear from you.
Okay, it's like we have a lot of questions, and then we'll try to get them together. But please, Ikechukwu, go on before I take Ms. Kaito's question.
Oh yeah. So good evening. Can you confirm that you can hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Okay, so I think really, I think just in terms of the comments that I had, it's really across three things, which we've sort of talked about, and I've really enjoyed the conversations that we've been having. One is around the policy thing, which I think is a really, really important thing as well, because in all of this, I mean, yeah, with the last speaker has mentioned that we also have to act as individuals, but I think it's very important that you also have those enabling policy backgrounds to actually operate on. I mean, as I speak, Nigeria only just signed the gas master plan early this year, I think. Um, um, and then across the continent, I don't think that's only about 10 countries or so, if I mean, I can check this, but only about 10 countries have an actual policy around gas, right? So it's really, really important that as a continent, if we hope to move forward, there needs to be that sort of political backing to say this is how we think you want to move forward. And this is what sets the tone for all of the things around the infrastructure and the use of gas for industrialization as well. Because I mean, as a continent, you're not going to go anywhere. We can continue to advocate at the UN or at COP or wherever, to allow for gas usage. But if you're not using that for industrial developments, you're not really getting anywhere, right? So there needs to
Please,
be
sir,
that sort of,
be audible, sir.
oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? Okay, so I was saying that so as a continent, there needs to just be that political backing that sort of gives you that argument around the use of gas for industrialization, and not just restricted to power. It's things around fertilizers, it's things around, I mean, all the different uses that you could potentially have for gas, right? So that was like the one point around the policy for me. I think then around the infrastructure is so yeah, I think we've sort of touched on this, right? Is how for infrastructure there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. I think that overall as a continent, there's like a massive supply gap, right? And we see this even in Nigeria with like the current um, power issues that we're having, right? So at present, we're only getting about 43% or so of that supply that's actually needed for power generation. So the question is, what's the
What
processing
happens to the other?
yeah, what's the processing capacity that we need to sort of get us to that level where you can actually get the amount of gas that you need, both within the country and as and across the continent in total. I think the last thing that I then wanted to mention was around the communication of it, right? Um, and this is kind of where I think I disagree with Gabriel a bit. Um, is when you say that because there's always the argument about emissions and all of that. And the people who would criticize gas usage and fossil fuels in general, but gas more specifically, is that they would point to methane leakage and methane gas. And the interesting thing about methane is over time, it's it's an even worse greenhouse gas than CO2, right? Over a long period of time, of course. It's a worse gas. It traps more heat and all of that. So they can always point to that as the point against gas development and all of those kinds of things. So as we think about gas as a solution, there needs to be that understanding of it, and so there needs to be that commitment to also support leak detection programs and just have that as the front thing. So there needs to be that commitment from governments, from individuals, from whoever it is that's involved, to make sure that there's always that detection and like proper monitoring of how you use the gas infrastructure and the resources to make sure that you're not then contributing to the emissions. Of course, and then still around the communication part is then, how that communication is being done. I think even the last speaker had also said something about how you need to tap in from everywhere. So for me, gas needs to be that thing around. It's really a bridge, that gets you to where you want to be. And then you're now sort of scaling on all the other, what do you call it?
All the other sources of energy.
And renewables,
yes.
And these kinds of things. But the gas is sort of that bridge that gets you from where you currently are right now into the level that you want to get to, and then you're then scaling all those other ones. And as engineers, actually, we need to actually take ownership of that communication. You can't leave the communication to NGOs and people who may not have a full understanding of the technical or science behind all of these things. There needs to be that communication from the actual engineers who do this work, who interact with the systems on a daily basis. So yeah, I think that's it for me.
Thank you, Kechiko, for contributing to the discussion. Gabriel, do you want to respond to the question, or we should have Yusuf also speak up?
Please, let's have a hand has been up for a long time.
Okay. Yusuf Mistura, let's hear you, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, so I think I would actually be going. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I think I'll be going in line with my dad's Ndukwe, right? The guy that spoke first. Because, there's this energy transition plan when Nigeria committed to being net zero in terms of emission by 2016. So, and do you feel we can achieve that with just gas? Because looking at the fact that if you want to be carbon neutral with gas when generating electricity and the likes, you would need to have like carbon traps in almost all gas power plants. And obviously we know that is expensive because it's still like a new, more like innovation. People are still doing their researches and these things. So that's why I'm kind of tending towards where Ndukwe, sorry if I get your name wrong, is talking about, because I would say we have grid issues, we have lots of issues around just even electricity, not even talk about the other aspects of energy, because I think the 80% of our CO2 emission actually comes from the firewoods that people actually burn to cook. So that is even another part of the narrative completely, not even talking about electricity. So for the grid, for example, I would actually say maybe you want to like build more grids. We should go for the smart grid. So it's easy to actually align towards you're using gas. Yes, it works with it. You are using renewables. We have so many, like Nigeria is blessed. We have lots of things. In Europe, most places, like you get to see conversations around renewables, but you don't get this data in Nigeria. And most times I get to tell people, Nigeria generates lots of electricity from renewables. You get to look at the roof of houses and you see solar panels and the lights like that. It's just that we use more of the inverter system. It is not connected to the grid like in the European countries. Let me use Germany, for example. You can't just have your solar on your roof and just generate your own electricity. You have to connect to the grid. So and once you connect to the grid, you are either making money through it because they pay you for the electricity you generate. And at the end of the day, when maybe there's excess or there's shortage, because there was actually a time when there was no generation there was no sun and there was no wind. So obviously the nation was in like a dilemma. Then they had to go for their backup. That is where this gas and others will still come in, or maybe generate from other neighboring countries from agreements that they've had. So I will look at the fact that maybe not just gas, exploring all means. And yes, policy has a lot of things to do with this. the new grids that are coming up, they have to be smart. So it's easy. So when those policies start coming up, it's easy for people to connect to the grid, make money, buy, sell. Because when looking at this, there's this energy triangle: accessibility, affordability. I don't even connect to the remaining three that has to do with is it sustainable, is it clean? Because Nigeria cannot even relate. We've not even related to the fact that is it even accessible? So I'm sorry, don't mind me. Conversations like this, I can become so emotional because it's actually a very, very big problem in Nigeria. And when the world is talking about these things, they just want to put, just like what Gabriel said, they just want to put us on that scale of this is what they are doing, and they just want to push us there, but not looking at our own reality. But I will look at it that if you look at most times when we are going towards technology, we tend to pick up the technologies that are now like archaic for these developed countries. So why don't we prepare ourselves for whatever circumstance we decide to work with? And obviously, maybe it will help us to get the 2060 net zero carbon energy transition plan that they are working with. But for me, I would say exploring all means is actually like the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Caleb, let me just say something. I want to make a clarification. I'm not against the other forms of energy. I am not against it. But my article says why natural gas is not the problem. Please, I want you to also listen because I am actually tackling the general facts from the global north. In quotes, the global north says we have to phase gas out. Phase out gas out, and then facing basic electricity. Now, this basic electricity in which we are talking about, I support the other mix. But can we, if we don't have what we claim to have in abundance beneath the soil, if we can't transport this to the little household, now I'm talking about the general scale in terms of in large scale right now from the government and all, because I'm trying to advocate. The global north telling us to phase out what we claim to have in abundance. I am not disputing the fact that we have other energy forms that can be integrated into the mix. So what I'm trying to say is there is no way we can phase out gas. That is what my article is saying. There is no way we can phase out gas and survive. So if we can, definitely, because we know that what gas has been doing to electricity in the long run, check out mega factories. Now, this is my point now. Most of our mega factories that actually determine the revenue, because most of these factories now, they produce what we use day to day. They produce the little things that we use day to day. And most of these mega factories run on power plants that are powered by this gas. So if we phase it out just like that, what are we turning into? Definitely. Another thing I was also inciting is because if we phase out gas, do we have the financial capability in global scale or in large scale now, in terms of how large, or let's talk about Nigeria itself. Do we have it in larger scale to be able to put this into whatever the alternative is? Because now, before you choose something, definitely you have to look at the economics of it. You have to do it in such a way. You have to invest in something that you can be able to have your returns. If you don't have your returns, how do you want to sustain your capital? I don't know if anybody understands what I'm trying to say. So that is my point, and that is what I'm trying to address. You can't phase out gas, which we have normally in commercial quantities. You can't phase out gas and just turn into, now, for example, now we know that South Africa produce their electricity from coal. And coal, let's not talk about that because we've addressed the carbon emission aspect. And coal is very, very, very dirty. So if you are telling Africa to phase out gas, because normally I saw something about 2-3 days ago, these global north we are talking about, this global north in question, still have gas, natural gas, as one of their major energy source. That is what is running in the north, in the global north. I'm talking about Europe and North America. So they still have this in play. So why are they dictating for Africa to phase out gas and turn into what? When we don't have the financial capabilities. Let's talk about our government. They don't have the financial capabilities to address what we claim to have in commercial quantities to the rural areas. Is it when we face it out and
Mr. Gabriel, sorry, let me answer your question. Sorry. I remember Katio Chukwu. She said we can interrupt you, but even when you're talking. Sorry, I'm interrupting you now. Do you know why we were listening to the global Europe and the likes? I can say our policymakers, our presidents, or even our leaders are not thinking inwardly. So, classical example, I remember when the Chinese shut out their borders, entry or exit, we must all internally develop our country. They shut out their borders. And now what did they do? Chinese, they have what they call a think tank group. It may not be specifically termed think tank, but specifically their role is to think through all stratas of livelihood or development within China and improve standard of living internally. So they send their people abroad to study, come back and impact those knowledge. That is what Nigeria needs. That is what Africa needs. Even forget Africa. That is what Nigeria needs. Do you know why Nigeria needs this? We have what it takes to be a world power.
Yeah.
Right? We have the population, we have the willpower, we have the policies.
I agree.
Do you know that there's a policy in Nigeria, or there's a law in Nigeria that says, okay, if a senator or an elected person is not actually working, right? Just to digress, the law can be against him, but who enforces it? No one. So the law is as good as obsolete. Now, back to what we are discussing, right? If we have these natural resources, what are we doing about it? We need last year or this year, there's decentralized energy generation. A grid that was generated 1960 something. It was just recently. So we are coming to the realities of the fact that we need to do something about it. So we don't need an external factor to come and tell us what we are supposed to do. Now, mind you, the coal in Enugu, which is the largest deposit of coal in Nigeria, right? Do you know it is the cleanest form of coal globally? Do your findings. As a matter of fact, those coals were exported to England to generate coal plants, which they used for a long time. And then some of us know the story about these things, right? Now, having said that, as a matter of fact, we need to explore all options we have to generate our energy mix. Nigeria, even as we speak now, we've not even explored waste to energy. From my house going to Igondo, if you see the numbers of waste there, and what is the whole waste to energy? It's pretty simple. Burn up those waste, it turns to heat. Those heat are converted to energy. But Ikeja Electric cannot even install a mini grid to serve the underserved, but they are doing estimated bill. They can't even invest in a small infrastructure to be able to cover those excesses of energies. They would rather give estimated bill. So you see, it's a mental factor that is derailing us from what to do. Or
Thank
I would
you,
say, thank you very much.
Say something, right? And that is in response to, I think that was Mistura that mentioned that one thing we all agree on is that definitely we're going to have the energy mix, right? One thing we all agree on is that we are going to have all of the different options. So the picture we are painting is that we can maximize gas resources within the next 5 years, 10 years, right? However, in the longer term, right, gas as a source of energy, especially for Nigeria and for Africa, would definitely have to be more of a backup. Why I mentioned Mistura is because she made a reference to Germany. You have to start with what you have, maximize it, make the most of it, and build so that you can move on to other things. Not move on in the sense that you stop using gas, but in the sense of we maximize our gas, in the sense of we build infrastructure, in the sense of we have better economic base, Kaito asked a question about the carbon markets, right? Kaito, you asked that. I currently work with a servicing firm, and one of the projects we are working on, because of the, should I be so specific? Okay, one of the projects we're working on, I didn't have the conversation with my HR, so I don't know how much detail I can share, right? But one of the projects we're working on is because of the current costs that the company, they are in the upstream, right, exploration production, because of how much they are currently paying for, as due to their flaring and every other thing. So we are currently developing, it's called a flare gas recovery system, right, FGROS for them. Currently designs, doing the front-end engineering designs and detailed engineering designs and all of that. What I'm simply saying is that based on the recent carbon market policies and framework, we are expecting that well over $2.5 billion, right, will be generated. It's just expected that if you punish people for flaring gas, then they would make the needed investment to have carbon traps in their industries. Are we together? So we're simply saying that let's maximize these natural deposits that we have, expecting that as the cost of solar generation, the cost of battery technology and all of those things reduces, then definitely we will have more and more solar technology. Someone mentioned the current use of solar technology. That is in homes. How many industries currently do you think, with how much power they consume, can depend on solar in a country like Nigeria as of now? So gas remains the best option for them, and that is why we see Geregu power plant, the OB3, a number of those projects have to just maximize gas, right? What I'm simply emphasizing, right, is that in the longer term, and when I say longer term, note we are talking 15 years, 20 years, 30 years. Definitely, we're going to have more and more of these other energy sources. But for the shorter term, what is most feasible, what can definitely change the game for Nigeria is the maximization of our gas resources. Emissions can be priced. We can use even carbon credits as a source of revenue for the country. In fact, it gets to a point where gas flaring becomes economically stupid. If you understand that you capture the gas and it is usable, you understand that you will reduce the emissions and you get carbon credits. There is a lot of money in international carbon credit, what they call the green financing, right? So I'm just emphasizing that definitely we're going to have all of those other things mixed up. It's that thing where as young professionals, we can begin to think of, oh, how do I get to play in this space, knowing that it has great future potential, that it's the thing where we begin to think of, even if you're not maybe from an engineering background, you begin to think of suggestions for policy, right? Begin to think of energy laws, begin to think of how we can do better with the communication, because we also have to, there's what is called sustainability communication. There's what's called, what's the word for it? Climate storytelling, right? Where we will not just be maximizing our current resources, but also we can frame the conversation, especially when we are conversing with Europe or conversing with, North America and all of that. So I really want to see more of us get involved in this space and ensure that we are maximizing what we have and building on it. So Gabriel, I would love to hear from you, sir.
Okay, I will address that, but it's like we have a question from Victor, and then I'll address the question on the chat box. Hello, Victor, please, you can continue. I still have my questions for whoever wants to ask, but Victor, please, your hands are up. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that was a mistake, actually. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I didn't know my hands well, but I'm enjoying the conversation. Thank you.
Okay, there's a question. Okay, Yusuf Mistura said, I am not against the use of gas. I just want you to share how we will achieve the net zero emission by 2060 with gas. The country is currently in a state where building a power plant might not happen in years to come because it is cost effective and a long-term project. So, ma'am, if I want to answer this question, in terms of costs now, how do you see investing in gas? Now, I'm talking about revenue generation from these two mix or any other source now. Tell me any other source. Oh, sorry.
Gabriel.
Lost to the lights.
Gabriel.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
This is the electricity we are talking about in this country. I'm very, very sorry. So please, because we have to address it, and I'm getting angry right now. So now in this kind of, let me maintain my stand. So now, what do we see? What do we see in terms of cost estimation and using investing in natural gas and any other form of any other energy form? Which one gives you more revenue fast? I'm talking right now in terms of commercial quantity. We have natural gas in commercial quantity. So if you're comparing the revenue that you'll be generating when you invest into natural gas and when you invest into any other energy form, now we are talking about global scale now, large scale now, which one will give you more revenue very fast? Definitely, we will talk about natural gas because we have it more. But now, what counters it is the policy. Is the policy, because we have to have policies that are very, very lenient with operators. Now, for example, I mentioned this example before. This happened in Egypt. The government of Egypt gave operators the free hand to the grid in such a way that by the time they continue production, and there are this waste gas, which in other part of Africa, they flare because of they don't have the structures. These operators take this gas, this supposed to waste gas, directly to the national grid. This alone is going to be like a source of encouragement to more operators. These infrastructures in which we are pursuing from the government, if the government can actually not do it, if they set the right policies and give operators free hand, operators can have independent gas infrastructures, which will help us more. And these gas infrastructures that these private and independent operators will make will help us channel this gas to the rural areas and overall help us generate the revenue that we can be able to use to invest into energy forms that will multiply our energy mix and give us this energy freedom that we all see.
Gabriel, I would want to also mention something, all right? You know, her question is as to how we can achieve that. So let me paint a time frame and make it very, very easy, right? This is 2026 as we speak, right? So between now and 2060, we have just about 34 years, right? But I would want to work with let's say a 30-year period, or let's leave it at the 34 years. Let's just be exact with it, right? Right? It's something very feasible. Technically, 34 years is a very, very long time to revamp, to revitalize, to restructure your power system, your generation industry. I mean, it's a really long time. So first of all, I'm emphasizing that it is technically feasible, right? As touching the part of the finance, as touching the financial requirements, that is why we're saying that we have money, right? And the aspects where we do not have money, we can also leverage on those resources we have. But I want to give a time frame to just make it very, very practical. Between now and 2030, we can have our gas resources, right? The parts that is being exported, the parts that is being used for CNG, the parts that is being used for fertilizer production, the part that will later bring about a boost in the economy. You agree with that, right? Now, when you say, oh, there'll be gas flaring, but we've spoken about the need for carbon traps, right? Then between 2030 and 2045, what I see us doing more is using more of electrical energy. Let me put it this way. Is where we begin to expand our grid infrastructure. We already have a policy. What's the name now? The one that allows for individual power generation, right? That was quite recently where people, it was during this Tinubu's tenure, Tinubu's administration. I don't know if somebody knows the one I'm referring to exactly, that allows for people to now make contributions to the grid, right? To generate power independently, the independent power generation. There was a policy around that recently. There was also the PIA, there's this carbon capture. There has been a number of policies that are already being put in place that can definitely ensure that between now and 2030, that of course we've made progress. Then we can begin to accelerate. We can begin to ensure that there is better storage. We can begin to ensure that there is scaling of our solar resources, of our solar grids and all of that. by 2045 to 2060, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't be near zero, right? I don't see any reason why we shouldn't be maximizing the use of carbon capture, the use of hydrogen. This is over 34 years. For very many of those projects we are working with, 10, 15, 20 years is enough for us to see the results, right? So am I saying that it's going to be all easy? No. But one thing we have emphasized is that people are motivated by finance. People are motivated by profit. Electricity Acts. Thank you, Yusuf. Right? Thank you, Ms. Tura. I think Ms. Tura is your first name. Right? Thank you. So definitely, it's that thing that is feasible. And I'm not saying it's going to be all easy, right? But while I'm emphasizing the parts that it is, once it's financially profitable, it means that people will be attracted to it. And I will tell you for a fact, there's a lot of money within the gas value chain. I mean, a lot of money. One person I know personally, all he does is distribution of domestic gas, like domestic cooking gas. He has now a number of, I just don't want to mention amounts, but there's the fact that there's a lot of money within the space simply means that it is investable, it is feasible, it is attractive. Then also because we're not saying that gas is the destination. In fact, one statement I want you to remember is that our natural gas is a transition fuel, not the destination fuel. The destination is definitely renewables. The destination is definitely clean energy from wind, from solar. Nigeria is blessed all around. That is one thing we all agree with. But what we're saying is that we maximize this in those short term, and short term, I'm talking 10 years. Short term, I'm talking 15 years, right? So that we don't take short term as that entire 34 years, right? Within short term, and definitely, right, all of those structures, all of those policies, having, even we as young persons discussing this more. One thing I can tell you is that in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, we will be more and more, 5 years is even too long. For some of us, 2 years, right? We're already growing within the energy industry. We're already growing within the power sector. Definitely, since we're already having all of those thoughts, all of those conversations, all of those deliberations, then definitely we can expect to see or to accomplish, if not a perfect zero emission, then definitely near zero emission systems by 2060. It is feasible, and I see us making that happen. Thank you. I'm seeing David's hand up. Is that intentional? We've not heard from you, so Emmy, I would love to have your response, your contributions, or your question. I don't know what it is. So, David, yes, please, you have the floor.
Yeah. First of all, I would say I'm really amazed and impressed by all the conversation that is currently happening. It's quite impressive to be, and then exciting for me to be part of the conversation. So, what I wanted to give in is that you guys, you are all right. Talking about it from the policy standpoint, talking about it from the energy standpoint, and also you talked about finance. So I want to buttress my point on finance. So I haven't been in the oil and gas space. Gas is actually very expensive to transport from production down to the end user. So I'm saying, so why I said that was because I had an actual project where we produced, we're expecting oil, but we found gas. And then because it was gas, it changed the whole profitability of the project. Why? Because for gas, especially if it's in first, Nigeria has some security problems. So most operators, right, would rather be offshore, or at least close to places where people will have little interference. And then when you're producing gas in such places, you have to start thinking of pipelines to transport it. Or if you're not transporting it via pipelines, you have to start thinking of places to, clean this gas and then process it and ship it off one place or the other. So you're thinking of transportation. There's a lot of logistic cost that comes with production of gas. Meanwhile, if it was oil on the other hand, your raw crude oil, you can sell it to anybody in the world. All you need is a tanker, fill it up and then send and ship it. Your money is going to be coming out fast. So I'm just saying that the financial aspect of all of this should be taken into consideration, because as much as we talk, to me, the government and everybody has to work together hand in hand. Policies should be favorable to people that would enable them to produce whether it's gas or oil or what have you. So then another thing is the infrastructures. We're relying on infrastructures that are very old. Like, I mean, they're outdated and they've not been upgraded. They've not been. I remember that was Nephew Energy talking about how long it has collapsed recently. So all this to say that the government has a major role in this, and which we play our part. But the government has to, will I say, make policies attractive to the people that are ready to develop our fields, or people that are ready to invest in our energy, in our energy industry. Yeah, that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Just briefly, then I think Gabriel would want to say something to that, right? Now, we all agree that when it comes to the oil and gas sector, it is capital intensive, right? We all agree on that, right? That was the Ajokuta, Kaduna, Kanu, that was that pipeline. It's called AKK within the industry, right? I'm very much aware that costs about $2.8 billion, right, for the development of that. And recently there was the one from West Energy. My point is that huge financial implications. We all BKQ types that in the chat, but we all agree with that. That's very, very valid, right? But I also want to point out that there are actually some other possibilities and opportunities that are currently available that some persons are not aware of, right? There is there are of course joint ventures that are very much willing to invest in those in that value chain, understanding the potential for it. But I also want to mention Kaito, who is the founder of the EnerGii Tribe, right? She works in development finance. And I know that the World Bank and the African Development Bank, AFDB, they have a coin provision where they can cover as much as 30% of pipeline costs for development. Right? You can check that out, right? I know that there is the MoGas JV. I know that there are options that can definitely help to reduce the project risk. I went together, and I just can't think of very many, but we also mentioned the fact that there is now the carbon market, right? By virtue of the fact that it's reducing, it's contributing to carbon credits, it's reducing carbonization, definitely it will attract international credit finance. It will attract international carbon finance, right? We've mentioned a number of times things around policies. We have policies that, why they are not perfect. In fact, I will tell you the truth. Nigeria as a country, I can't speak for all of Africa, but Nigeria as a country, our problem sometimes is not even design of policies. It's often the implementation. It's often the execution. Why am I saying that? Because if you check, right, you will find that we have a number of policies that will actually support this. We'll just need proper implementation and proper execution, right? There are current arbitration clauses that, I mean, a whole lot of things that will just ensure that our pipelines, what's it called? Someone should check details of Abuja Ibadan. There's a pipeline that is being built. I think this early 2026, they were talking about the welding of it, right? And what's the word? They want to also use a tariff system to ensure that there's private financing. I don't know who would help me check that, but just check it. I know it runs Abuja to Ibadan, right? And a few other options. I'm just simply trying to say that we can definitely accomplish this, because there are already some things that will contribute to execution and implementation. And as much as I just hope that helps. I just hope that answer responds to it a bit. Yeah, Gabriel, please let me hear from you, sir. Why I still gather my thoughts.
Okay, I guess is what you talked about is the Shagam to Ibadan, and it's over 80%, I believe. They said they'll be completing it this year, kind of. I've not really gotten details in it, but as at the last time, I believe that is it. So, in terms of the finance, Doctor, I actually wanted to address that. Though you gave a very, very perfect answer to that. And then that is what we are actually talking about. The investment of AFDB and World Bank, because they're really interested, because for World Bank to be able to release tracker reports, they've given a lot of says about Nigeria and Africa energy poverty and how it can be taken off the chart. So the aspect of AFDB and the World Bank in financing it is an extra one. So the primary aspect we are actually talking about is the finance. It is generatable. It is generatable. The only problem, just as you said, I'm repeating what Caleb said, is the implementations, because it all boils down to the policies that have been set down. So if the policies that have been set down are not implemented, definitely we are going nowhere. I don't know. Okay, let me get what Nefo Energy wants to say.
All right, thank you very much. I mean, sincerely speaking, I really love this conversation. Okay, so first, before I touch on finance, I want to answer the question Kaito asked.
Okay, I don't know if it's just my end, but can we still hear him?
No, I can't. I think his network went off. I'm guessing
I'm
you guys.
I'm back. Sorry about that. Hello, can you hear me?
Okay, please go on then.
Yes. Okay. So I wanted to respond to what Kaito asked about how can we effectively deliver the energy mix. I think the first is that policy which was really introduced, decentralization of energy generation, right? So once every state can generate their energy, like we can see a classical example is Aba or Abia State. You know, they bought the asset over Aba Power, some of the assets, and then they're generating their energy, So state government has taken charge, and you have 17 local governments in Aba. As we speak now, over 50% of those local governments are generating energy. Are actually having access to energy. So the remaining maybe 30 or 40%. Now, having said that, it's for each state to identify what is paramount to us, or what is particular to us that we can use, or peculiar to us that we can use to generate energy. Like I'm talking about Lagos. Lagos is a classical example because I live in Lagos. You see a lot of landfills, dump sites, market waste. You can use, they have agricultural waste, you have a municipal waste. These can generate energy. You go up north, you have the sun is there. So it now depends on each state to identify. Is in the river Rhine, you have the wind. So identify internally what is peculiar to you, generate these energies, sell. If state governments can have these assets and then transmit, distribute, or generate these energies, and then they can get funding to even as internal generated revenue. And like what Yusuf mentioned, Miss Yusuf, right? Sorry, I can't remember your first name now. Carbon credit is now a big deal. As a matter of fact, carbon credit was originally discussed in 1997 in the US. It spilled over in the early 20s to the Europe. And then the Chinese took over. You know how they are now, very capitalistic in their approach, right? They took over and now they are the biggest dealers in carbon credits, as a matter of fact. Now, for Nigeria, I don't think, then speaking to what Caleb mentioned, finance is not our problem. Literally speaking, finance is not Nigerians' problem. The questions we should ask ourselves, are our projects viable? Are they feasible? Are they bankable? Are they sustainable? Like we can remember the early 20s where you have the Millennium Development Goal. Let your project be sustainable currently, because we are now chasing a sustainable development approach. So regardless of whatever we are generating, is your project sustainable? And then finally, is it bankable? Any local or international financiers can fund it. Finance is not Nigeria's problem. And like I already mentioned, classical example of fintechs, how they changed policies, how they made the regulators to initiate policies. Even if there are policies that are obsolete, you getting funding for your project, for a bankable project here in Nigeria, trust me, regulators would tweak those policies to align with whatever project we have on board. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nafo Energy. That was a very, very wonderful one. And Ms. Kaito, I don't know if we'll be moving on to if there is any other question or any other contribution.
Yes. what I expect questions, right? If you have a question, I think we should be tying this up in a few minutes. We can indicate. I'll just want to leave us with a few actionable steps, a few things that we can definitely do. Part of this is because I'm looking through the persons on the call. Good to see you, Promise, and other persons who I also know here, and I know that we have some of us, in fact, everyone on the call at this one, from my perspective, very young persons. So I just want to leave us a few things that we can definitely, act on, definitely build on. For those of us who have engineering backgrounds, definitely one of the places that you definitely want to be a player in is in the oil and gas sector. You want to ensure that you are building skills, you are getting internships, you are getting the relationships, attending industrial events, all of the things that just begins to best prepare you or best ensures that you have presence in that environment. And I can tell you, especially in a country like Nigeria, there is money in that space. So, I'm just saying, right? So, especially for those of us who are from STEM backgrounds, like you studied science, engineering, mathematics, yeah, definitely you can definitely play in practically into that, right? But I would also want to look at for others, right, who maybe you are more inclined to business, you're more inclined to finance, you're more inclined to law, right? I also want to say that this is a space where energy economics also has room for you to play. We need people who are also skilled in contracts, people who are skilled in stakeholder engagements, people who are skilled in as much as they have all of those other things that forms the basis of their career, right? But also can put the focus on the gas sector, on the oil sector, and definitely, right, make their contributions towards that. There's also room for those of us who are more entrepreneurial. Why am I mentioning that? Because there's gas distribution, there's logistics. We can start up clean energy. We can start up Tinubu. There's this thing he did around CNG vehicles. I don't know why I'm forgetting most of the names of his policies because they usually have those names. But you know the policy I'm referring to, right? Where they deployed CNG vehicles.
President Initiative.
What's it called?
Initiative on CNG. President Initiative. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now, definitely, we need young persons who also can learn how to convert these vehicles or these engines to maximize CNG as a source of energy, right? We need persons who are skilled in mini methane plants, energy efficiency, things like that. Even building the digital marketplaces, because we do not just, somebody was asking something about consumers, right? We do not just want to have those things generated or refined or whatever. It definitely needs to get to the end users. So we can think of digital marketplaces that can link gas suppliers to consumers. I can't remember the last time that I carried gas out to go fill. I mean, think of that as simple as that is, right? So there are definitely places and environments, policy network, EnerGii Tribe, of course, that is one of the things that we're definitely going to be doing more and more. That is contributions to policy engagement, policy networks, and all of that, right? You want to ensure that you are a part of that. You are keeping abreast of the publications from NLNG, from NNPC, from NMDPRO, and all of the other agencies that are involved in that space. Energy transition is definitely the future. We all agree with that, right? However, as a country, we must begin from our place of strength and make progress so that once again, we are not engaging with the world as a superior and receiver. I don't know if you get what I'm saying, right? But where we can come to that point where we begin to engage with the world, and when I say the world, I'm talking about Europe, I'm talking about the US, I'm talking about China, Russia, we can begin to engage with them as equals, as Nigeria and as a continent, Africa. I believe in Africa, and I'm looking forward to the future. Thank you. So if you have any questions or contributions, we can take it. And title, thank you.
Amazing. I've been reading so much. And I think before we go, we could hear Gabriel's final thoughts, and if also we could touch on what Ephraim mentioned. And
sorry. Yeah. Please, I want to touch on what Ephraim mentioned. Ephraim, nice twist though, nice twist. But I mean, renewable energy, and sincerely, we have made a lot of mistakes, and we have measured we're putting stop gaps to these things. So if you talk of people either boycotting the system, either not wanting to pay for stuffs, right? There's what we call remote shutdown. We also track the energy real time. We actually know what they're consuming, even when they don't know. And then we have agreements, which we sign with these people. And I like what Mistura said about policy implementation. So what we do, we create that extra level of guarantees for even investors to see that, yes, we have done our own background checks. And even when they are investing too, we give them that confidence that, yes, every invested penny has to come back to the investor. That's the only reason why they'll come back and invest again, right? And then you, that is the middleman, be sure that you are vetting the right people, so that you wouldn't be in a stage whereby you'll be put in a box and you don't have what to do. So we take that extra precautionary measures on the system, on the individual, on the agreements we have, and then we ensure that we build or boost investors' confidence. Right. This is a very lovely conversation. I wish you could go on and on, but we happen to network, and it's a pleasure. Thank you very much, Kaito, for setting this up. Thank you, Gabriel and Caleb, for even putting your input. This is really, really lovely. And everyone else that spoke, well done. Mistura, I wish you could connect, but I don't know what you think. Well done, everyone. God bless.
Amazing. Thank you, everyone. I don't know, Gabriel, do you want to say? I know Caleb already gave a few last words, so if you be open to that, yeah.
Okay, thank you very, very much. For me, the end, every person, based on what the last idea Ephraim came up with, everybody has a role to play. We can't just keep blaming everything on the government, like in terms of when we talk about policies. But what if we, the consumers, don't play our own part? Because it's just like a chain-like relationship. So while the government play their part, the operators play their part, the consumers play their part, definitely the flow is going to be continuing, and definitely we are going to be having there's going to be an increase and a high skill increase about what we're actually driving at. Everybody has a role to play. And for me, now taking it back to my own arguments, because we've really digressed. My own argument is not phasing out natural gas. That was what my article was all about. That was all my article was all about. Natural gas has no problem, but natural gas has been really helping the country and the continent at large. So I believe we'll be having a lot of engaging discussions like this, because this will really do a lot to students, young professionals, and future energy leaders that look forward to playing their parts in the energy industry. Thank you very, very much, Ms. Kaito and the EnerGii Tribe, for having me tonight. I am grateful, and I look forward to another time with you all.
Yes, I'm totally grateful to you guys, to be honest. I was basically writing and howling and let me check Google, let me and all of those things. So it was really, really amazing having all of you speak, both the contributors, both the showstoppers, everybody that, contributed to making this session very lively. I think one thing that you guys mentioned that reminded me, because the last session that we had before this was, a founder series, and we had Eddie Dion share about his energy units that's powered by gas. And so it was an interesting one to actually when Nefwa Energy, I hope I did not miss that, mentioned when we said we had individual parts to play. And so it was there's already someone we know that, spoke the last time that does something around gas power generators and all of that. And so it was interesting to put these conversations together, and definitely there will be more of these conversations coming up. I totally enjoyed myself. It was so insightful, very, very insightful. I'll just say, I think one thing I'll say is that for everybody that registered, you would definitely have the YouTube link to this, because we streamed it, and so it will be, you can always go back to pick up some of the points that were made. If you want to reword, if you want to share, that's very fine. So we'll send all those details to you, and also the LinkedIn profiles of our speakers, so you could always connect with them as well if you'd be interested in that as well. And just theme that just make sure you're connected with us on all our socials, Instagram, LinkedIn, WhatsApp. You'll get all the details from this event and even for upcoming events as well. So I'm very, very excited that we have come to the close of this one. And I'm so grateful to all of you that stayed through to the end. I mean, everybody was active, everybody was typing, everybody was giving their own opinion, everybody, and like this now, my head is so full. So thank you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you. And please have a lovely weekend. Please reach out if you have suggestions. Please reach out if you have anything to ask. Any of the team members will be willing to support, will be willing to guide, will be willing to share our experiences as well. And also, there's a feedback link. I forgot to mention. Yes, thank you. There's a feedback link. So please drop your feedback. And we'd follow up. We always read our feedback. We always make sure to incorporate one or two things that have been said. And so please feel free to also drop your feedback. We'll also share this via mail. So feel free to look out for that as well. Gabriel, you want to say something?
I don't know. Somebody asked the last question, and I don't know if we can answer that, please. He said, what does a truly African-centered energy transition look like in summary? For me, it is. Okay, somebody wants to answer. Okay, beautiful.
Yes. Thank you very much. I really love that question, I must say. Thank you very much, Samuel. I think that's your name, for mentioning that. Right, yes, Samuel. So now, what's truly an energy transition, real transition, energy transition in Africa means is this. When you go to your village, there are people cooking with firewoods. Just change those firewoods to maybe clean stoves. You go to suburban areas, there are people generating energies with lamps. Just change those lamps to solar bulbs. When you come to the city, there are still people using kerosene. There are still people using firewood at their backyard or burning, open bush burning. Just sensitize them and say, see, this is the right way to do these things. You may even generate a business from that, a business idea, and you know how people make money these days? Solve a problem at large scale. That's all. That's what everyone does. Solve a problem at large scale. So if you feel that, we want to solve Africa's Africa-centered energy transition problem, right? Just go and identify one area or some areas that that you want to resolve the problem. Now, let me also give you a little bit of background about Nifu Energy. Realize that some projects were not bankable. You introduce a project, people don't even know what they're talking about. I want to develop an energy project. And then, they don't even know. When you start asking them critical questions, they don't even know what they're saying. So we decided to bridge a gap, to say, okay, let's be consultants, let's be brokers. And then we're energy developers. We are solving a problem. And I can tell you for sure, for free, we've really solved a couple of problems. We're even sitting on one problem we want to solve now, but I may not be able to mention it here. So identify a problem, and then go ahead and solve it. That is really what the energy transition, Africa-centered energy transition is, and then give it meaning. Thank you.
Okay, wow. That was a brilliant end, I think. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone. I don't even know what to say. I'm just very
thank you also. We appreciate you.
Thank you guys so much. So thank you guys, and we'll definitely see in the next session, which will be coming up very soon, sometime in April. So just watch out and keep in touch as well. You guys can have a lovely week, lovely weekend, and take care. Bye.
Bye-bye. Cheers.
Bye. Bye.